My name is Duane Hall. I'm a representative from here in Wake County in the North Carolina House. And I'm excited to be here today to be part of this coalition and represent North Carolina in what is a national bipartisan effort to protect our constitutional right to privacy. As we speak, lawmakers in 16 other states from here to Hawaii are holding simultaneous press conferences. And our goal is simple. It's to pass legislation that will protect our fundamental right to privacy in a digital age. Not only has the Supreme Court guaranteed us this right, but recent surveys have shown that more than 90% of Americans feel we need new legislation to protect our rights. Right now, in Alabama, Republican Representative Arnold Mooney is holding a similar press conference. In Missouri, one's being held by Republican Charlie Davis. We have Democrats in Virginia, West Virginia, Arkansas. In Michigan, Republican Representatives Runstead and Lucido are holding press conferences. New Mexico, Republican Senator Jim Dines is doing the same thing. And they're doing it along with many other Democrat and Republican representatives as well. Now, the bills across these states vary slightly, but at issue is our ability to protect our most private thoughts and communications with our friends, our family, our loved ones. We all recognize that the right to privacy is not absolute, and that much of our life in a digital age is going to be lived in the public. But we maintain that certain areas must remain inviolate. If a student sends a message to her mother, she shouldn't have to worry that a school official may check and read that message before her parents do. And many states in their legislation have carved out exceptions. The most obvious is that a court order by a judge will always give permission for a search. Things put out there on the public domain, public space, can't have claims to privacy. And there are lots of other exceptions different states have carved out. Here in North Carolina, for example, I introduced a bill as a primary sponsor along with Representative Jason Sane, House Bill 846. And that carved out an exception for public safety. It passed through committee unanimously. It passed through all three readings of the House with extremely strong bipartisan support. But like a lot of legislation, it stalled in the Senate. Now, a lot of other states have already passed very similar privacy legislation. So the reason that we're here today, along with 16 other states across America, is to raise awareness so that the rest of us can get on board and pass legislation that's needed in a digital age to preserve our fundamental right to privacy. This legislation could affect hundreds of millions of people across America. And I'm proud to be part of this coalition comprised of Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives from all across America that are committed to working together to make it happen. We also have some students that are committed to making it happen, and I'll answer questions in just a few minutes, but I'd like to let one of them speak first. We have Lindsay Trago, who is a law student at UNC, and also a double major in mass communications.
Hi everyone, can you all hear me? My name is Lindsay Trago, and like Representative Hall said, I'm a second year graduate student at UNC Chapel Hill. My name is spelled Lindsietrego for any print journalists out there. I used to be one of you, so. As a student myself and also in my work with students, I've seen firsthand how social media has become a primary tool of communication for young people today. Just like generations of past would use the telephone or handwritten letters to communicate their private thoughts to select audiences, young people especially have adopted social media for those same goals. Social media platforms have become really vibrant parts of our awesome marketplace of ideas in this country. And social media platforms allow individuals to choose between sharing their ideas with a very public, large audience, or sharing their ideas with just a small, select group. This free exchange of ideas, however, is chilled when students fear that their private messages will be read by school officials who seek to gain access to their communications. By allowing online privacy for young people especially, we preserve their personal autonomy. Social science indicates that preserving this personal liberty not only encourages young people to set personal boundaries and to gain heightened levels of self-confidence, But it also shows that preserving this personal liberty fosters a generation of young people who are able to think critically about the ways in which they communicate and who feel free to democratically engage with their communities. This legislation that Representative Hall is proposing will prevent censorship, and it will foster personal liberty by prohibiting school officials from violating students' privacy by forcing or coercing them into providing access to their social media accounts. A bill like this will allow students to better control and protect their online data, and it will protect the vibrant online communities that serve as enclaves for free speech in today's society. Thanks.
I think that's all as far as our speakers. If anyone has questions, the two of us as well as Sarah Preston are happy to answer questions for you guys.
So are you advocating for House Bill 846, or is this something new?
Both. 846 was a bit of a broader bill that was introduced in 2013. It also included some privacy measures with employers. The reason we focused mainly on students today is it was coordinated across 16 other states who are mainly focusing on student issues. We intend to reintroduce the bill, possibly we can in the short session with some amendments, if not definitely in the next long session.
And what would it do exactly?
The ones across the country or this particular bill?
The ones across the country. I mean, what are you seeking, what are you talking about specifically with this press conference?
All the bills are slightly different, but the main part are privacies to personal settings. Obviously, if you put something out in the public domain on Facebook for the public to see, that can't be a claim of privacy. But there's been forced asking of passcodes, to see into students' private settings. Some universities even asking for passwords to private emails. Employers have also done that in other settings. Some of the other exceptions that have been carved out in this bill, and I know some other ones, are for things like equipment that belongs to the university or the employer. Those are some exceptions. But the main goal we're going after are ones that seek private passwords for private settings.
So are you saying that in order for a school to ask somebody for their password, or they would need a court order to get that? Is that essentially?
It's one of the exceptions. I know that their privacy in some instances have been violated in the past, and students have actually won trials against the school for violating their privacy rights. I feel like I'm taking over, so anyone else would like to answer as well.
Well, I'll just add as to what the other states are doing. So in the 16 states, there are different types of bills that are being introduced. Some of them are broader than what we're talking about here in North Carolina, but we know that this particular bill that Representative Hall introduced in the past has broad bipartisan support in the North Carolina General Assembly, so we are going to pursue that again. In other states, they're going so far as to look at police collection of data as well. So the point is that there are 16 states and the District of Columbia that are really concerned about privacy protection, and they're willing to move even where the federal government will not.
So, as a North Carolina State student, I'm given an email address from NC State. What is the current status of them being able to access that without my permission? And when you say that I can be forced or coerced, can I be suspended from university for not giving them my password currently?
I was a student at NC State also. We didn't have the email when I was there, but I don't know the current status at NC State. We're trying to get ahead of it with this legislation to make sure they can't require that. With my limited technical skills, I would suspect that they have access to it already with their email.
If a student is using equipment that is owned by the school, where does that stand in your bill? I mean, does the student use on that computer also, you think that should also remain private, or should the school have access to that use?
I feel it should also remain private, personally. That's an exception that I've talked about with several other legislators. For the simple reason that some students don't have other means. They don't have other laptops, computer to use, and if they're using their own private email accounts. We believe that should remain private as well.
If there's a worst case where something happens, if there's some public safety issue, and, you know, you found out the student was talking about it on a school computer with somebody else, I mean, don't you think that would be a worry? I mean, that opponents would say, well, we can't have students using school equipment for this kind of activity?
Well, this particular bill, we had already worked with the university system to carve out an exception for those types of emergencies, public safety issues. Beyond that, a court order from a judge is always an exception. Other than that, I'm not sure if anyone else would like to address some of the exceptions.
I actually think you did a good job with that. I don't have much to add there. I think with regards to this particular bill, obviously if there's an emergency situation, Representative Hall addressed circumstances where school may be able to access the information. And of course, you could always get a warrant and be able to access the information that way. And that would be regardless of whether it's school equipment or the child's or student's personal technology that they're using.
Sarah, could you address what the student said about having an NCSU email account, and does that make a difference in terms of what this legislation could or could not do?
I think the legislation is specifically designed to get at private email accounts or social media accounts, that kind of thing. Am I getting that right?
It is. Mine was a bit broader. It also included social media like Facebook, and mine also included employment situations.
So it wouldn't include a university-generated email account?
So I think that it could. If the email account is viewed as that student's personal email account that they're using, that's still personal information. And I think Representative Hall was absolutely right that what we're trying to do is get ahead of situations where a student might be required to hand over the password. When I went to school, we did have email, and I know that we were the ones who set up the passwords for it, so they would be asking me to give up the password to my email if they wanted access to it. And I know a lot of students use that email account as their only or their primary email account, so there's definitely personal content that's being shared.
So would this extend to all levels of education from kindergarten up through college?
The bill we originally introduced here was mainly for college and job situations. A lot of it was also for missions. There are schools that required the ability to look at your private settings and social media as part of an application to get into college. Certain employers that ask that of people that were applying for jobs. A lot of the focus of today's press conference, I believe, is for students younger than that, high school, junior high school.
So would this cover private schools as well as public schools?
Again, it differs from state to state, but I mean, the right to privacy shouldn't differ if it's a public or a private school.
Is it in the bill for the bill that you're introducing, is that also, does that cover private schools as well as public schools? And you also mentioned in another state, they're looking at collection of police data. Is there any plans to introduce something like that in the future?
I don't have any plans with the bill that we had last time, me and Representative Sane, because it's a bill that already addressed a lot of the issues and it had strong bipartisan support. So that's something we'd like to work on, a very similar bill again next time. I think that's it. Anyone else has questions? Thanks everyone for coming out.